Or the mic? Okay, great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our press conference, Human Rights, a Prerequisite for Inclusive and Effective Participation. My name is Mirto Tilianaki. I'm a senior environmental advocate with Human Rights Watch. And we're here today because the people most affected by the climate crisis and those working hardest to address it are often the ones facing the greatest risks for doing so. They are also increasingly being targeted and repressed. Human Rights Watch has documented how environmental human rights defenders are facing criminal prosecution, intimidation and violence for opposing coal mines in Turkey or oil infrastructure in Uganda and Tanzania. We have also documented how countries like the UK or the host of this conference, Germany, has criminalized climate activism. And this is not only happening in countries, but also in the spaces where climate policy is being designed, including the UNFCCC. Open civic space isn't a procedural issue. It's a prerequisite for climate action that is equitable and effective. And our panelists today will show us why and what needs to change. So I'm joined by a distinguished panel, Damla Kuru, next to me, from Amnesty Turkey, who will speak about civic space issues in the country. Jurema Werneck, Director of Amnesty Brazil and Special Envoy on Racial Equality and Peripheries for the COP20 presidency, will highlight the importance of expanding participation in climate action. She will be followed by Lien van Damme from the Center for International Environmental Law, CL, who will speak about UNFCCC reform to address conflict of interest issues and ensure effective participation. And we will end the press conference by some concluding remarks by Anne Harrison from Amnesty International's climate team. So over to you, Damla.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As someone from Turkey who will be one of the host country of COP31, I hope many of you will have opportunity to visit Turkey in November. Before you do, I would like to highlight an issue that's fundamental to any climate conference. It's civic space. We often discuss climate finance, mitigation, and adaptation, but none of these processes can be fair, effective, and sustainable without the meaningful participation of those who are most affected by the climate crisis. Communities, indigenous people, environmental human rights defenders, and civil society organizations bring essential knowledge and experience to the climate decision making. This participation helps ensure us these decisions are grounded in reality. When governments restrict protests, silence critics, or limit access to the decision-making process, climate policy becomes less accountable and less effective. Thus, civic space is important for climate policies, but unfortunately in Turkey, civic space is shrinking. So I will explain today this story. For years, Amnesty and other human rights organizations have documented restrictions on freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly. Journalists, activists, human rights defenders face criminal investigations, prosecutions, and arbitrary detentions simply for exercising their rights. Peaceful protests are frequently restricted or banned. Peaceful protesters are subjected to excessive use of police force or arbitrary detention. Civil society organizations face punitive and burdensome audits. This is the context in which many environmental defenders in Turkey operate today. And these human rights violations are not abstract concerns. They directly affect people who are defending their land, their water, forests, and livelihoods. Across Turkey, local communities continue to resist environmentally destructive projects. These include İkizköy Akbelen, where protests continue against coal mining and deforestation. Afşin Elbistan, Kahramanmaraş region, where communities oppose coal-fired power plants due to health and environmental impacts. Soma, Manisa, where demands resist for accountability and safer conditions following the 2014 coal mining disaster, in which 301 mine workers were killed, as well as İkizdere, Kaz Dağları, and Cerattepe, Artvin. These populations resist gold mining and other large-scale extractive projects. Despite growing concerns about the rule of law and judicial independence in Turkey, these communities continue to use their right to protest and continue courtrooms for their advocacy. These communities haven't given up, so we shouldn't give up on amplifying their voices and ensuring they are heard. As we move towards COP31, we must remember that climate action and civic freedoms are inseparable. Host countries must ensure that everyone can freely express their views, organize and participate peaceful protests on climate and other environmental issues without fear, intimidation, detention, or reprisals. The success of COP31 will not be measured only by the decisions which is taken in negotiation rooms. It will also be measured by whether people are able to participate safely, freely, and without fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Damla. Jurema, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As director of Amnesty International Brazil, and also as a special envoy for racial equality and marginalized communities, I'm here to talk briefly about the COP30 legacy on participation. Amnesty International has stated that human rights is a prerequisite for inclusive and effective participation. And in Brazil, COP30 was benefited by participation as a value of Brazilian society, or also as a value for human rights and the climate system. We had in the COP30 some innovations. First was besides the two champions, the COP30 presidency created a body of 30 special envoys for different sectors. The idea is to build a bridge between society and the spaces at UNFCCC. There are special envoys for different issues, different groups, different interests. But I can attest, it was not enough because the diversity of the global society is much more broader. But we were 30 representatives. Together with the Special Envoy for Women and with the Special Envoy for Human Rights and Just Transition, we developed a tour throughout the country, throughout the 6 biomes in Brazil, just to hear the voices of Brazilian people, mostly women. And all we heard, the main thing that we heard was about participation. The people in different biomes, in different localities, in different space, they were applying to be heard because they continue to say that they are the most affected by the climate crisis. And it means that they have the solutions because they are managed on a day-to-day basis, the solutions to deal with the crisis. And they apply for UNFCCC to be heard. This is our experience. We also had the green zone of COP30. There was plenty of people, diverse people. There were about 300,000 participants in the green zone in Brazil. And we had the People's Summit with 70,000 participants. We have a very impressive march downtown in the city of Belém with 70,000 people applying for response, for participation to be heard. And the message that we bring to COP31 presidency is about participation as a value to us to put in place the real solutions for the climate crisis. The rooms, the closed rooms, the closed hearings are not enough. We do expect that Turkey especially, but the COP31 presidency together, Turkey and Australia, they could respect human rights, they could protect and respect human rights defenders, and they must guarantee an open civic space for everybody. This is our call. As I not talk to my colleagues, special envoys, but I am sure that is their call, to an open civic space in Turkey in order to us to have people participation, to have the global population and its diversity participate in COP31. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerema. And speaking of solutions that you mentioned, Lynn, in your view, what can be done to ensure civil society participation in these spaces?
Thanks so much for those remarks. It's really clear that participation in this space is important. And when talking about participation of rights holders, we should also talk about the other side of the coin, which is undue influence by corporate actors. The objectives of the fossil fuel industry and other actors representing polluting interests are the very actors that have fueled the climate crisis, are fundamentally in conflict with the objectives of the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. So it's really problematic that the UNFCCC does not even have a definition of what constitutes a conflict of interest in this space, let alone a policy to address it. And because of that, year after year, fossil fuel lobbyists, they are granted access to the very negotiations that are ultimately meant to make their destructive business model unviable. The International Court of Justice, in its climate advisory opinion, was clear that states have a duty to regulate private actors in the face of the climate crisis. And that duty to regulate also means excluding them from participating in treaty regimes in ways that undermine those very regimes and their goals. States have human rights and other obligations to ensure that corporate actors cannot exercise undue influence, including in the context of multilateral environmental decision-making. And the need to do so in the UNFCCC has also been affirmed by human rights experts, including the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Climate Change. On Saturday, for the first time in the 30 years of this climate regime, an open dialogue was held with parties, presidencies and observers on the topic of integrity of the UNFCCC and conflict of interest in this process. So that's an important step that parties, again, presidencies and observers came together to discuss these matters, but it's also a step that was long overdue, and that is also only the start of what is needed. The dialogue must be the start of a process. We need a dedicated space to discuss conflicts of interest and also to come to an agreement on a comprehensive approach to address it. Climate action will continue to fail to meaningfully address the climate crisis as long as polluting interests are granted unlimited access to policy-making processes and are allowed to unduly influence and weaken the critical work of the UNFCCC. Curbing corporate capture is an important piece of the puzzle to further reform and strengthen the UNFCCC, because in the face of the accelerating climate impacts that we're seeing, we cannot continue as we've always done things in this space. It's high time to question the reasons why this process is not delivering on its objectives and implementing its decisions. And so the UNFCCC needs to evolve to a space that is free from corporate capture, but also transparent, inclusive, participatory, effective. And that also includes changing the way that decisions are made. I'll conclude on saying what can happen here in Bonn after this successful dialogue, or initial dialogue that we had, because parties really have the opportunity here to also take concrete steps towards curbing corporate capture of the space, including through the arrangements for intergovernmental meetings, negotiations. However, the draft text that came out on Saturday, again, does not include a reference to conflict of interest, and so that needs to change. They are currently discussing that in the rooms, and we are really calling on all parties to come in and ask for a comprehensive policy to address conflict of interest, as well as other important changes to the process that can enhance the participation and the transparency of the UNFCCC. Thanks.
Thank you, Lien. Anne, would you like to make some concluding remark? Okay. Okay, so we can open up to questions from the floor. Please raise your hand and introduce yourself. Is there a microphone? This, yes.
Okay. Yes. Hello, my name is Stefan Rirach. I'm here from Germany. I'm active in several civil rights groups and climate justice groups. And thank you, Myrto, for addressing the problem in Germany, rising repressions against activists, as well as thank you, Lien, addressing the problem with the majority almost of stakeholders of the fossil industry in these conferences. And one of the problems we face in Germany with the SB conference is that every year activists from the Global South apply, and not just a few are denied visas, or there are visa delays, and then they get allowed when the conference is almost done. So we're trying with one of the groups I'm active, we're trying with Parents for Future Germany, which is a very small movement, to address this problem and approach the foreign ministry and collect data from all over the Global South with just case studies to present to the foreign ministry. And I was just about to ask if it's maybe possible to get some support of Human Rights Watch and Amnesty to support this project.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beatrice. I'm coming from Cameroon. Cameroon is found in the center of Africa. I am very pleased with the presentations, and my worry is, you spoke about human rights inclusion in participation, especially in the SB. This is my third SB, and we've been presenting like the same issues all through. And I wish to find out, why is Amnesty not working in collaboration with the Women and Gender Constituency? The Women and Gender Constituency of the UNFCCC is one of the 9 constituencies created to facilitate and present voices. How can Amnesty work and push for the Women and Gender Constituency to have access to fundings and grants, so that local organizations can be able to work with local women and not create these spaces or project these spaces as elitist? It continues to remain elitist. The same women, the same men. I cue in with my sister who said that there is paper barrier for Global South. How then are these women in the grassroots experiences, their lived experiences, how is it captured in these spaces when the same people, the German embassy would only give a visa to someone who has had a previous visa or has a stronger visa like the USA visa or Canada visa? Otherwise, if you're just coming from my country, for example, and without any visa, you are denied. For us, for me, I call it that is paper barrier. In that light, I am suggesting that the SBs and the COP could be decentralized to make it fair. If people cannot access, the real people who are affected disproportionately do not have the liberty and the freedom to come to these spaces and get first-hand information or give first-hand information of their lived experiences, then it should be decentralized so that everyone has an opportunity and a respect of their fundamental human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Helga from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I would like to ask the Turkish representative here what the chances, what the opportunities are, particularly in Antalya. I know about the repression in the east with the Kurdish issue. I know about the interdependence between, well, Gaza the Gaza war being criticized by the Turkish government, but at the same time they are leading through the oil to fuel the war. I know that there is occupation of Syrian land where the people lose their olive plantations. And so there is a lot of conflict by the Turkish government. So what is the situation like? Can human rights defenders work freely in Antalya? What will be the chance for the People's Summit there? What is the special situation? Who is the mayor who, well, regulates the police there?
Maybe we can, yeah. Yes. As you wish. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Deniz Gümüşer from Turkey. I'm an environmental engineer in profession, and I'm working for the Right to Clean Air platform in Turkey as the coordinator of the platform. I would like to mention my own experience at the local level, in addition to what Damla has already described regarding the shrinking civic space in Turkey. Since 2019, I have worked closely with the villagers of İkizköy, Akbelen, who are resisting the expansion of a coal mine and feeding 3 giant coal power plants in the region to try to save their forest and their agricultural land. Their struggle, our struggle, because I'm also from that region, our struggle is not an abstract environmental issue. It is about our homes, olive groves, water, right to clean air, livelihoods, health, but most importantly, our dignity. In Akbelen, I have seen how people who are defending their forests, I'm sorry, I'm excited, their land, forest, water, and clean air are treated as criminals. I have also experienced personally discrimination. I was detained several times while taking part in peaceful demonstrations. I faced judicial control measures. I was not allowed to travel abroad for 2 years. A ban from entering my own hometown for almost 2 years, and I couldn't see my family during that period. And finally, I received this 5-month prison sentence, suspended for 5 years. So if it was not suspended, I wouldn't be here, but in prison. But this is not only about me. Many of my friends and fellow defenders have faced similar criminalization. This is not a single case, though. It is part of a systemic policy of intimidation and deterrence against environmental human rights defenders. Defending life is not a crime. It's a public and ecological responsibility. As governments prepare for COP31, they must understand that climate action is inseparable from the human rights. Communities resisting fossil fuel expansion must be protected, not punished. Environmental defenders must be able to speak, organize, and resist without fear. Akbelen shows us that fossil fuel phase out is not only a technical climate issue, but it's also a health, justice, and democracy issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're almost out of time, but we started a little bit late, so maybe we can have another minute. Damla, if you want to quickly answer the question, and then Anne, some concluding remarks. Thank you.
My answer is real quick one, because I don't know how to do it, but we should say these are rights and we need to protect them every time, everybody, when we are here. It's like repeating all the time, same thing until the change.
And thank you very much. And I think we've had a very rich discussion here this morning about the importance of participation and many of the barriers people experiencing in the national context, such as in Turkey, which is very relevant for everyone going to COP. Also at getting here, the visas, and I'd be very happy to have a chat about how we can do more on that. And just to flag that Amnesty is working hard on the visa system in the Schengen area, which we believe it constitutes indirect racial discrimination against people from African, Asian, ex-colonies and majority Muslim countries. So we are working hard on that. The conflict of interest issue is very pertinent and really needs reform, and so we call on parties to take steps in AIM and other spaces to address that. And of course, many of these things are only going to get worse if we don't address the undue influence of the fossil fuel lobby and other big polluting sectors like the technology companies with the projected growth of artificial intelligence, which will risk creating more sacrifice zones where these big data centers are projected to be built with the use of water, the use of land, land grabs from indigenous peoples, etc. And I just wanted to flag that I had a very moving meeting with members of the Mesoamerican Caravan last week who shared some very serious concerns that many of their lands are going to be used in this way and taken away from them. So we need to really keep fighting for open and protected and safe civic space at all levels, local, national and international, in spaces such as these. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks for the press.